Hey guys, welcome back to Sip and Dip with Chelsea. Today's video is going to be a step-by-step full tutorial of a dip powder manicure on my natural nails. I'll be using all Revel products today. It has been a hot minute since I've done one of these videos, so this one goes out to all of the new faces here. We're going to go over all of my tips, my tricks. We're going to go very slow and in depth. So first I like to shape my nails. So I have my glass nail file here from Bonafide Beauty. It's one of my favorites. It's well loved, as you can see. And I go around my free edge area just getting my nails back into shape. This isn't a very long process for me because I do my nails so often. But if you don't have a glass nail file, you can absolutely use a higher grit emery board. Just make sure to file in one direction if you're using an emery board. Next up is pushing back our cuticles. So I have my glass cuticle pusher here and I'm going to very gently just push the cuticle back off of my nail plate. This right here, y'all, was such a game changer for me when it came to lifting. Prep is such a huge deal if you want longevity out of your manicure. So really spend that time during your prep process to clean up everything on your nail plate, because all of that you can see right there. If I would have left that on my nail, that would absolutely cause a big lifting issue. So now with the other side of my cuticle pusher, I'm just going to clean all of that out. Following the same steps, I'm just going to go nail by nail, pushing back my cuticle. I also like to do small little swirls when I can feel anything kind of just stuck on the nail plate. And when I'm happy with it, then I clean it out again with the other side. All right, I am all done. You can see just how much that glass cuticle pusher removed. They are so gentle, yet so effective. Now with a stiff scrub brush, I'm going to dust all of that off. So the next step would be to use a buffing block to remove the shine on your nail and to also remove anything that might still be left on your nail plate. So I would suggest a buffing block like this with a little bit of grit to it, not a sponge buffing block because those are too smooth. So just very gently removing the shine and anything left up around your cuticle area and then the entire top surface of your nail. So if you're still experiencing lifting even after doing this with a buffing block, then I would suggest trying a 180 grit nail file or even a higher grit nail file next. I always suggest to start with the most gentle option first and then introduce one product at a time or eliminate one product at a time when you're trying to pinpoint exactly what you need during your specific prep process. Everyone's prep is going to be different depending on their nail chemistry and lifestyle. Next, I like to use a pH prep. This one is from Sparkle & Co. You could also use a dehydrator. Whatever you have on hand or any brand will do. This product will cleanse the nails of any oils or anything left on the nail that could cause a lifting issue. So you might be wondering why I didn't buff my natural nails. So it's my own personal preference based on my nails, my chemistry, my lifestyle to not buff my natural nails. I like to choose the dry manicure route as well. I have another video that goes really into depth about all of that, my process and everything, but I wanted to keep it very straightforward for you guys and I didn't want to confuse y'all, but I also like to use peel base. So peel base lets me have easy pop off removal. They usually lift and pop off within 1 to 3 days. That way I don't have to soak in acetone and I can still keep up with my filming schedule. So I'm going to apply a layer of peel base really quick, let it dry. But if you want your manicure to last, absolutely do not use peel base. Here's the shade that I'll be using today from Revel Nail. The very first thing I like to do with all of my dip powder is use a toothpick to stir it and fluff it up. I'll also be using Revel's dip powder liquid. So this is step 1, Pro Base. So I have everything set up. That is my number one thing I do before I even get started. I've got my Pro Base, I've got my napkin or paper towel sitting here to wipe my brush off on, and my dip powder is open and ready to go. I start by removing the excess product off of my brush. You really do not need a whole lot of product on there. And then I like to rest my finger on the jar. I have my nail pointed slightly downward. This just just lets me keep better control over the liquid so it doesn't flood my cuticle area. You can also see that I have my right hand resting on my desk, which gives me better stability. So if we were to start this brush right at our cuticle area right now, all of that excess liquid would go on our skin. So I like to start my brush right about here and then float the liquid back. You can see I'm pressing down and letting my bristles sort of fan out and then pulling that excess liquid down. Now I'm going to go around all the way to my sidewalls, making sure I do not get this product on my skin and moving very slowly. This is in real time, just making sure I have a full coverage on the nail. Then I wipe my brush off on the napkin before returning it to the bottle, tilt the jar at an angle and dip in. Tapping off that excess powder, here's our first layer. Before the product dries, I like to use a toothpick to just run it around my cuticle area. This gives me a nice crisp, clean look and make sure there's no product on my skin. So following the same steps, I go nail by nail. I do not like to brush off the excess powder until the very end just to make sure it's completely dry, but you can see it's just a very slow and simple process. I don't want to bore you guys to death, so I did speed this one up a little bit, but it's the same thing, just wiping my brush off to prevent contamination and slowly guiding the nail into the jar, tapping off that excess powder, and again on the next finger. So don't be afraid to go slow. Remember, this is YouTube. This is not quote unquote real life. I have the ability to speed up the process and edit things out. So please do not feel like you're taking a long time. If you're a new face here and you're new to our dip powder community, welcome, but please do not feel like you're taking forever. It takes time and practice to get a little bit faster with every manicure. Now that they're dry, I'm going to use a stiff scrub brush to dust off all of that excess powder. I love stiff scrub brushes for this. I've preached about this. It really does help with contamination of your liquids. It removes so much extra that fluffy brushes just kind of leave on the nail. It also helps create thinner, more natural layers too because you're removing more product. Layer number 2 will be the same steps, removing the excess product. This is about how much I have on my brush bristles. Then I start it right about here on the nail again, guiding the excess liquid back towards my cuticle area, fanning out my brush bristles, pulling the excess liquid down all around on the entire nail, avoiding my skin, getting all the way over to those sidewall areas, and then making sure again that I'm wiping my brush off on a paper towel or napkin before returning it to the bottle. So after tapping off the excess powder, if you ever notice that it still looks shiny or a little bit wet in certain parts, all you have to do is just dip right back into the jar. It just means that it needs a little bit more powder on there to absorb into that liquid. Then I'm going to clean up around my cuticle area and follow the same steps for my next nail. So I want to show you guys what happens if I don't have enough product on my brush. So you'll see here I start running out of product on there and I'm kind of just dragging it down. So before I go grab more product, always wipe your brush off before putting it back in the bottle to prevent any contamination issues. Then I go over to this other side that I haven't gone to put all of that excess liquid there and make sure I go back over top the entire nail to make sure none of that base liquid has already dried before dipping it into the powder. And before it dries, I clean up with my toothpick and follow the same steps for my next finger. So if you're not new to dipping and you've tried it and you realize you're having rippling on your nails or maybe lumpy nails, that could be due to having too much product on your brush or even just the way you're dipping into the powder. So it may be beneficial for you to try to remove some more product or even pour the powder over top. I have a specific video just for this topic already on my channel, so I'll leave that linked up above. So if you ever notice when you're going to dust off your manicure that some of it kind of comes off in clumps on your brush bristles, that is because the manicure is actually not dry yet. So you may have a slower drying base liquid and it might need just a little bit more time to dry before you go to dust it off. So really make sure that the powder is dry before dusting off the excess. Now with my clear dip powder, I'm going to clear encapsulate all of the nails. So that's just a full layer of my base liquid, getting all the way to those sidewalls, those nooks and crannies without getting this product on my skin, wiping my brush off on the napkin and dipping into the clear. So I like to do this step as just a precautionary step. It helps to preserve that color when I go to file, shape, and buff, especially if I'm using glitters. Then it's very important to add some sort of layer of protection on top of the glitter. So if you're, again, not new to dipping and you're experiencing cracking or chipping, it might be that you need more strength, depending on the length of your nails, the shape, your lifestyle, all of that. I do have a video on that as well about building up an apex so you can have more strength in the places that you need it. I would love to add more topics to some of my videos as far as the do's and don'ts. So if you have anything that you are struggling with, anything you'd like me to go more in depth on, I would be happy to film a video covering just that topic so we can help others out in our community. Once they're dry, I dust off the excess powder. Now that I'm done with my pro base, I want to show y'all how I clean up afterwards. So I just remove some of that excess product off of my brush. Then with my paper towel, I wipe all of that off of the rim. So what can happen is if you leave that excess product there, it's basically super glue. So when you go to close up and you tighten up that lid, it will get sealed shut. It can also cause contamination, so make sure you clean up the rim of that bottle before closing up. Next up is step 2. So this is activator. We're going to apply a very generous layer of this to all of the nails. This is the product that will harden the pro base so that we can file, shape, and buff. It is okay to get this on your skin. Then I wait 2 minutes for them to harden and dry. Once I hear a clicking sound, so a hollow sound when I tap on the nail, then I know they're ready to file and shape. This is my go-to nail file. It's a Macart 100/180 grit. I grabbed them in a pack on Amazon. So I like to use the 180 grit when I'm shaping the dip powder, so during application. And then the 100 grit side I use to remove the bulk of the top coat and product before soaking in acetone. So the higher the grit, the more gentle it is. So this side right here is the 180 grit, and this coarser side here is the 100 grit side. So higher grit, more gentle, lower grit, more coarse. So I go around the free edge area and get my shape back first. When it comes to shaping, I take it slow and steady. The one thing I always try to keep in mind is I can't put product back, so I don't want to remove too much at one time. So I'm always going slow and just kind of looking at them to make sure I'm happy with them, going in small motions. I don't want to remove too much at one time, and I do this nail by nail, just stopping to check them out to make sure I'm happy. Okay, so I'm all done with my outer free edge shaping. Now I'm going to use that same 180 grit side, and I'm going to go around my sidewall area so that I can taper it and cut down some of that bulk. Then I go up around my cuticle area and then back down again on the other side of my sidewall. So this is going to help blend down that product so that we don't have a ridge while still maintaining the integrity and strength down the center of our nail. It's really important on how you hold the nail file. So if you hold it down like this and angle it down, you could run the risk of cutting down into your natural nail or your skin. So I like to make sure I'm watching exactly where I'm filing and how I'm angling my nail file so that it's only filing the dip powder and not going past the dip powder into my natural nail plate. I also go really, really slow. Then I run it across the entire top surface of my nail just to make sure I have a nice even surface, but I'm not doing this to cut down bulk. Here's how it looks when I am done, and I follow these same steps nail by nail. So I followed the same steps for all of my nails. Now it's time to buff. So here's that same buffing block that I was raving about at the beginning of the video. These are a little bit coarser of a grit, and I use this across the entire top surface of my nail to smooth it out. Then I focus the buffing block around my cuticle area to smooth it all out, give it a crisp, clean look, angling it to only buff the dip powder and not my skin or my natural nails. I follow these same steps for all of my nails, and here they are done. Then I brush off the excess powder. Now is when I stop and just reevaluate. I check them out, I look at my free edge shape, I make sure they're nice and smooth, that I haven't missed anything. This is your chance when you've cleaned them up to really look them over before we go on to our next step. With my step 2, so activator, I'm going to apply another generous layer of this to all of the nails, then let that dry for 2 minutes. Once it's dry, I use a dry napkin to rub it across the entire top surface of all of the nails. This just double, triple checks that I don't have any leftover activator that could contaminate my top coat brush. Now it's time for top coat. So step 3, finish gel. I have another clean, dry paper towel here to wipe my brush off on, and I'm going to remove the excess product on my brush again. You really don't need very much. This is about it. 3 quick strokes. That's all I do for my first layer. And I make sure I don't get this on my skin, wipe my brush off on that napkin before returning it back to the bottle and getting more product. I follow those same steps, 3 quick strokes, wipe my brush off, get more product, and that's it. The first layer does not need to be precise, so we're going to be more detailed and slow on our second layer. Once they dry, you'll start to notice that there's a little bit of ridges, kind of rippling. It looks a tiny bit wrinkled. That is how you know it's dry and ready for your second coat. So the second layer is more precise, more detailed, really making sure you get all the way over to those sidewall areas and paying extra careful attention to capping off your free edge. So capping off your free edge is where you run that product, so the top coat right here along this part of your nail to seal it all in. The reason that I wipe my brush off for my pro base and my top coat on a paper towel or napkin every single time it touches my nail is because it could possibly get contaminated. So once you touch your nail, you could be grabbing oils, any excess dust, activator, anything like that. So if you go and put that brush right back into your bottle before wiping it off, you could be contaminating your liquids. If you've ever noticed your liquids get thick, goopy, your brush is hardened, it's possibly because it's been contaminated. It can be as simple as accidentally touching that brush on your skin, which can also cause lifting. So it's really important to have good liquid control and brush control when we're doing our application. So go slow, resting your hand on anything that can help you stabilize it, and really just paying attention to where you're placing that brush and liquid. So we are all done. We're going to let this dry for a couple minutes, and I want to show y'all how I close up my finished gel. Following the same steps that I did for my pro base, I removed the product off of my brush and I used my paper towel to wipe off that rim up there. You can see the shine, that's the excess top coat that I have. If I didn't do this step and I tried to close up, it would probably get sealed shut and my liquid would come back and be either hard or goopy. So I want to point this product out. This is the gel thinner from Revel. It's phenomenal. I have like 10 bottles on hand at all times. When I go to close up, as a precautionary step, I usually like to add a couple drops of this gel thinner to both my pro base and my top coat. It's precautionary, so you don't have to do it, but if you ever notice that your brush is hardened or your liquids kind of seem thick or goopy, you can add a few drops of this to the bottle and it can help thin them out. Now that my top coat's dry, I'm just going to use my cuticle oil pen to add the moisture back to my skin and nails. Please, please, please do not skip this step. It is so important, especially for if you want healthy skin and nails. I have stashed cuticle oil pens all around my house that I don't forget to moisturize my skin and nails during the day. All right, y'all, that is it. My step-by-step from beginning to end. And speaking of end, if you're looking for a removal video, I do also have one of those. It's a quick 10-minute process, and I will leave it linked up above. Thank y'all so much for being here. Welcome to all of the new faces. I hope you will stick around and subscribe. I have lots of tutorials, tips, and tricks. If you are having trouble with anything, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out, comment down below. I will always try to make a video if I can on that specific topic because I'm sure it would be helpful to others as well. And I hope today's video was helpful. Thank y'all so much for being here, and I will see you next week in the next video.